All right, welcome. It's time for us to talk about big issues making the rounds across the globe and in Nigeria. Welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodu. As usual, we'll be looking at issues from different perspectives from the global scene. We've got stories that has to do with the American elections, where a comedian at a Donald Trump rally has called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, sparking furious reactions from fellow Republicans as well as Democrats. The comedian Tony Hinchcliffe was among the stars who turned out for the event at the Madison Square Garden in New York. He also made a series of jokes that lent on racism stereotypes. A Trump advisor distanced the Republican from the Puerto Rico joke, which was also denounced by Trump's Democratic rival Kamala Harris. All right, that's one of the stories look from the global scene. We also have some other very big talking point that hopefully we'll be looking at in the course of the program. From there, we'll be coming back to Nigeria education sector, where the non-academic staff unions of Nigerian universities have declared an indefinite nationwide strike over the continuous withholding of their members' 4-month salaries since 2022. The Joint Action Committee of the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions, NASU, and the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities disclosed this in a statement on Sunday, and the strike did start today. So we'll be looking keenly to see what the federal government's reaction would be. And the big question is, why do the federal government always wait for them to react rather than do the needful? And we've got the presidency talking this evening, where President Bola Tinubu's Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Temitope Ajayi, on Monday said former President Olusegun Obasanjo sees himself as the only savior God created for Nigeria, reacting to Obasanjo's claim that Tinubu came into power without a plan. All right, that's a very big talking point to be looking at. And we've got alleged brutality, police brutality, where a coalition of Nigerian youth, students, and civil society organizations has called for the immediate dismissal of the Inspector General of Police as regards the brutality being suffered by some Nigerian youths. Okay, that's one of the big stories. And taking it to the northern part of Nigeria, about 19 traditional rulers comprising district and ward heads in Sabon local government area in Sokoto East Senatorial District of the state have resigned their positions and declared their support for Senator Ibrahim Lamido. The traditional rulers at a press conference in Sokoto said they decided to support the senator because of his drive to curtail insecurity in the villages. Lamido and 2 other federal lawmakers had accused the All Progressive Congress, led by administration in the state, for not adequately addressing the people's concerns. That's what's playing out from the northern part of Nigeria as we look at issues from the national and also subnational level. And we've got the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu in the person of Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, also dismissed report that the president is Nigeria's substantive petroleum minister. Onanuga made the refuter on Sunday while fielding questions on Sunday's edition on the TV program when asked if the president hopes to hold on to his job as the Minister of Petroleum. Onanuga fumed, saying the president had never addressed himself with such title, adding that the nation already has 2 ministers handling the affairs of the oil sector. He noted that Tinubu is aware of the struggles Nigeria face. All right, those are some of the big talking points we'll be looking at, and not forgetting the last, but not the least. The presidential spokesman, Bayo Onanuga, again stated that the federal government did not buy a new official jet for Mr. President, contrary to claims on social media, saying that, stated that the government acquired a refurbished jet for the president, adding that the plane belongs to the country. Onanuga stated that some jets in the presidential fleet purchased under former President Olusegun Obasanjo are all in bad conditions. All right, those are the talking points, and one of the other talking points will be democracy inclusivity, reserving seats for women, the benefits and the impact. That's going to be our main talking point on today's edition of the program, The Desk. I've been joined in the live studio by Honorable Mrs. Amina Darasimi, who is the National Woman Leader of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and also the National President, Political Parties Women Leadership Forum. So glad to have you in the live studios.
Thank you so much. Good evening, viewers.
All right, before we hit into the discourse, which has to do with reserving special seats for women, some of the top stories we looked at today, what will be your take as regards the fact, talking about the information and strategy personnel of Mr. President saying the planes bought by the ruling party, APC, was refurbished. The question Nigerians are asking, why buy refurbished aircraft? Why didn't they fix the one that was already they said was in a bad condition? It's as good as refurbishing it all the same.
You know, there are too many questions asking for answers in this regime, and so we are not surprised. Too many questions. I wish they can give us direct answers. It doesn't make sense refurbishing.
By the refurbished,
yeah, it doesn't make sense. But again, at the same time, if they go ahead now to buy new aircrafts, Nigerians will still complain. So what are we supposed to do? What are they supposed to do?
All right, let's, in terms of the president not being the minister, we know that he's the chief minister of the petroleum oil sector.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the Onanuga who is trying to defer from the fact that the president is
but I've not seen any other person being named the Minister for Petroleum. Even when he did his cabinet reshuffle recently, he didn't appoint another Minister for Petroleum. So we just assume he's still the Minister for Petroleum. Yeah, there's no change.
All right. Okay, so let's look at the issue of on ground now, looking at reserving, special seats for women. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have asked the question, why reserve special seats? Are the women ready? And for you, what would you say have been the main challenges for women in the democratic journey so far?
I think one of the major reasons will have to do with our party's constitution. Party's constitution. If you look at the Nigerian constitution, if you look at our party's constitution, if you look at our manifestos, even the electoral act, there is nothing in that document that suggests specific strategies on how women can actualize their 35%. We talk about the gender,
the gender disparity between
the
affirmation?
No. What I mean is in the constitution,
okay,
the parties have to come with a review of their reforms.
Okay.
For instance, for you to say, okay, for the party positions, we need this percentage of women occupying these positions, not the traditional women leader or deputy national women leader. We want to aspire to see more women occupying other positions like national treasurer, national secretary. Nothing stops a woman from achieving that. But the party's constitution does not have a gender policy that can drive that. So
indirectly, it's not gender sensitive?
No, the gender policy is neutral. There's nothing, okay, you talk about the 35% affirmative action for both elective and appointive positions, but you do not have the specifics to say, for instance, we want 3 women out of 3 senators, we want 1 woman. Or to say, out of 9 House of Reps members, we want 3. The gender policy is neutral. And so when you look at our party's constitution, even at the manifestos, this is what is playing out. That is why we cannot even achieve the 35%.
Okay, let's look at, some have said in terms of the key challenges facing women, it's about lack of capacity and further women not being early involved in the electoral process. Do you agree with that?
No, not really. We have the women. We have the women. Like I said, our major issue is our constitution. Just this morning, we had a dialogue in Transcorp with the House of Representatives talking about concerning the women inclusion and participation, and they were talking about special seats. Now, how do you achieve all of this if your party constitution does not have a gender policy? How do you achieve that? And so you're talking about the special seats, and we are wondering what modalities are we going to use to actualize that when the 35%, like I said, for both inclusive, elective and appointive positions have not been realized because it's not specific. And when you go to other climes, like Rwanda, that is leading the chart, you realize that the government was intentional. They were specific from the units, pulling units level up right through. And so for 30 years now, after the genocide, they had a gender policy that allowed them to put women in positions. And that's why today they are leading the chart in the African Parliament. But when it comes to Nigerian constitution, the gender policy is neutral. And so you see the women struggling with the men.
Do you think they are willing, why do you think they're not willing to be deliberate in terms of the gender policy now for political parties? And do you think women can also, some say, why don't the women float their own political party or women political parties rather than want to be in these existing political parties, since they have the numbers and they also have the financial power, so to say, by proxy?
You can't do that. The Nigerian society is patriarchal, or maybe African society is patriarchal. The kind of politics we practice in Nigeria is male-dominated. So you can't do it alone. You need the he for she, you need the men. And then in needing the men, we are not in competition. We just want to complement them. We need a seat at the table. Yes, we need a seat at the table.
Okay.
And so we cannot afford to have our own political party. It will not work.
Oh, from the interaction you had today, at the end, what would you say was gotten there? Do you think you people made a change, or have you caused any change? And do you think they are willing to, alter the gender balance in the politics?
I will commend the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives,
Benjamin Kalu.
Yes, who incidentally is the chairman of the Constitutional Amendment Committee. I want to commend him because it takes a political will to begin to have these conversations. He has already seen it that we need the numbers. For instance, how can you be talking about women's issues in the National Assembly when you don't have the women sitting at the table to talk about these issues? For the fact that he has even started this conversation, and as chairman of that committee, we are so grateful, and we know that this conversation, by the time we are done with the Constitution amendment, it will become an act that will be into law. And by 2027, I'm sure we'll have more women in the National Assembly.
Okay, let's look at from what the women have seen from what the men have done so far. Are there loopholes that you think the women can lash upon to be able to, stake a claim for these leadership positions they're, trying to, are seeking for?
The truth about the matter is that we women have the numbers. We are the ones that go out there on the election days. We are the ones that vote. We sit down, the votes are counted. And so that's an advantage because we have the numbers. But what we have to ask the men to help do, or the National Assembly, the leadership of the National Assembly, and our party's leadership, is to ensure that they get the gender policy right. That is the only thing that we are lacking right now. If you're talking about the women with capacity, we have the women, we have the numbers. But except that change is effected, we will still be going round and round in circles.
What are we expecting to see in the gender policy you're harping upon?
We're saying it should be specific. Okay. Like I said, right now it's neutral. Be specific in terms of, we want...
For all political parties?
For all political parties. Because seated here, I'm the president of all women, the Forum of All Women Leaders of all political parties in Nigeria. And we are speaking with one voice. We've never had it before. This is the first time we'll have a forum coming together as critical stakeholders to pursue this. And we know that at the end of the day, we are going to make out something. So what we are asking for right now is, now that the chairman has started the conversation, looking at the special seats, the question is, how do we achieve the special seats? Because I remember after my speech today, one man asked me, are you planning to take our seats? These are the conversations we are beginning to have now, the modalities for us to have these special seats, where we can have more women in elective positions, in both appointive and elective positions.
Remember the last time the women folk tried to this affirmation, 30% affirmation, at the National Assembly. It was technically thrown out.
Yes.
Looking at the 10th Assembly, yes, we've got a Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, who is pushing this narrative. Do you think he's got the support of the 10th Assembly? And how do you intend to change the narrative so that this time around it's not thrown away like it was?
We've been going on advocacy visits. For the past 2 weeks, it has been a marathon. We've visited the leadership of the National Assembly. So we have been going on having these advocacy visits. We've been talking to NGOs. We've been talking to critical partners, development partners. As I speak to you right now, by next year, we'll be coming out with a document for the National Women Forum. It's an action plan in collaboration with WFD, they are our development partners. And what are we saying? It's a document that will go to all the political parties on how to get it right when it comes to the women. And again, just last week, we launched the charter for on demand by Nigerian women for political parties. And we did this with the United Nations Women. So it's been advocacy. We've been going all out there talking to the men. The he for she. Just like I said, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, he's at the forefront pursuing this.
Well, how has the response and other members, have they shown
the last time when our bills went to the House, it was done in a hurry. There was no time. It was almost end of the year. It was thrown out, of course, because we didn't have the numbers. So he has started it early enough, and we're going to be lobbying. It's not something we're not going to fight over it. We have to lobby the men. Like I said, our society is patriarchal. We're going to be lobbying the men to make them see reasons that we're not competing with them. We want to complement them.
But is it true you're not competing with the men? Because that was one of the big talking points at the IPAC recent meeting, where the Zenith Labour Party chairman, Dana Wanyawus, made a comment that the women, first of all, are they ready? Especially if you look at the Nigerian political scene, you have to have a deep pocket, and also look at the thuggery aspect of Nigerian politics. Can women or will women be consistent? That's a very strong point. From your perspective, do you think the women are truly ready?
I want to even thank him, the chairman of Zenith Labour Party, because what he said to us is, in their own party structure, they have up to 8 women in their own party structure. Having said that, we have women who have capacity. But what we have done with our development partners is we are looking for resources, funding, so that we can start on time. You can't get into this politics without funding, without money. For instance, we're just talking about the sales of forms, where in all the political parties now you're told the forms are free for women. It's only the expression of interest form that you pay a token. But you know what that does is, we are not standing on the same playing field with the men.
Why?
Because if a man is going to buy a form for 4 million, for instance, and you're giving the form to me free of charge, we are not standing on the same level.
Why do you say that?
No, the man will be taken more seriously than the woman. We are not saying you should not give out your funds for free. We are saying maybe the funds should be reduced so that more women can afford it. For instance, in the party politics, my form was not given to me free of charge. I bought that form alongside the men. And so when we sit together in NWC, they don't look at me as a subordinate. We are seated as equals. So when you now reduce the fees for the forms, more women can afford it.
Doesn't it go back to what the fear of the men, that the women want to take their spaces, take their seats by sitting equally with them? And we know on the whole.
No, but what we do is we compliment them, actually. We really do. But except that in my own NWC, I'm the only woman there. And I would love to see many more women, because this is where the party structure is. If we can get it right, and then you get it right through to the state working committees, to the local government and to the ward, and you have more women in the party structure, it will open up more doors for the women.
Okay. If this is achieved, the fear of the men is that when women are in charge, they easily tend to go overboard when they've got power at their beck and call. Are women looking at how to allay those fears? Because those are some of the strong fears.
But it happens to the men too. It happens to the men too. We have seen men who are in positions of authority and they have gone above board, you know. I think it's got to do with the person. We cannot generalize it to say, look, when a woman is in position, the woman begins to compete with the man. No, I don't think so. That's not true.
All right, let's look at in terms of, you talked about development partners. Okay, but before we get into that conversation, talking about development partners, how key is it for civil society organizations, IPAC as a body, then the international, I know you talked about the UN Women.
Yeah.
How key are they for you to achieve this laudable goal? And do you see it happening in terms of financial support?
Well, that's a conversation we've been having with them. The good thing about this forum is most of these development partners are not partisan. So they would not want to work with just a political party. But now that we have come together as a forum, it's looking more likely that we are going to be getting the kind of funding we want. Right now, what they have been doing is they have been training. We've been having series of trainings. As women leaders, you have to be more informed. And so from us now, you now begin to train the state women leaders who will now in turn train you train the zonal women leaders who will now in turn train the state women leaders who in turn will now train the local government and the ward women leaders. This is what these organizations have been doing. You have the IRI, you have the NDI, you have United Nations Women, you have the UK government, all of them working together. So it has been capacity building. And I believe that by next year, because we are rounding off now, by next year we'll begin to have the funding that we need. Because you can't just be handed over money. You have to be trained on how these monies will be distributed, of course. So that's what we are doing now, and they have been very, very helpful. It's been very impactful.
Okay, in terms of this reservation of seats, most people, political analysts have said the women seem to focus on the senatorial, the House of Rep, why they're not looking at the lesser seats to start with. And is there a time frame for in terms of what the women want to achieve in terms of reservation of these seats?
Well, the deputy speaker was talking about 16 years. We want to run it for 16 years. Now, we're not just only focused on the National Assembly. Like I said, I talked about elective and appointive positions. Okay. Even in the elective positions, very few governors give appointments to their women. With the current cabinet reshuffle that just happened, it's so sad that 4 women were removed, only 2 women were brought back.
Would you say it's based on the scorecard of how the women had performed before this reshuffle? That's why that happened.
I wouldn't know what transpired or what.
But how would you score the women that were before now removed?
Well, it depends on their terms of reference when they got into office. You know, so sitting back out now, we cannot just...
Can we use Mrs. Kennedy Uju as a yardstick to assess her? Some say she was overly rude in trying to achieve her task or mandate, and that was one of the key reasons why she was booted out. How would you assess her?
I think it was just her manner of approach.
Doesn't it go back to what I said, that when women...
No, wait. What I'm trying to say
power,
is that, no.
To go overboard?
If you saw some of the things she was fighting against...
They were genuinely wrong?
No. If you saw the things she was fighting against, the things she was fighting, she was right as a woman leader, as a minister for women leaders, for women affairs. Okay. Because there was a clip I watched where she said, why do we keep coming for conferences and at the end of the day, you collect so much money and nothing goes back to the women for empowerment? Like I said, it depends on her manner of approach, but most of the things she fought against were the things she said she was going to fight against. And I think that maybe the people she fought against were too powerful and they just wanted her out. Because most of the things I saw her fight were genuine. Why will you ask for so much money and at the end of the day, women are not empowered? You just spend all the money doing conferences? It didn't make sense. She came to impact on the lives of the women. And so, but when she got there, of course, you know, there were challenges she faced. So I really, really didn't see her as a bad person. I just felt if they had given her enough time, maybe Nigerians would have understood her. And it's really, really sad that she was thrown out that way. It's sad. And then bringing back, you just brought back just 2 women. So the political space is actually shrinking for the Nigerian woman.
There's been this big question about women supporting women as another big factor that has played against the Nigerian women in politics.
Yeah.
For instance, we've got the First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, who has been a lawmaker as the wife of Mr. President. Shouldn't she have been a key person to have, if not anybody else, influence Mr. President to give women that chance? And if she can't do that, then don't you think there's a problem about women supporting women?
That's part of the problem. And we sitting out here may not know what is playing out there. I'm not sure that sitting there as the First Lady of Nigeria, she wouldn't want to see women in positions of authority. I don't think so. But I think that the boardroom politics is playing out.
Can it supersede what Mr. President, the other Mr. President gives?
Well, like I said, I wouldn't know. I don't know the scenario. I don't know why, because I see her as a woman. I mean, you can imagine that she was the first woman to have been in the Senate for 3 terms from Lagos State. It has never happened before. And so I know that being the First Lady, she came on board with a lot of things to do for women. But then what is the issue? What is stopping her from achieving this? This is the question we're asking, and we need answers.
All right, hopefully we'll get the answers when we come back from this quick break. And I want to say thank you for joining us on the desk. Let's go for a quick break. When we come back from the break, the discussion continues. Please stay with us. Is the desk on Global Television.
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are the Palestinians. We are the Canaan because
that this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
Welcome back. You're still watching the desk on Global Television, and we're looking at issues that are making the rounds in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. Just to let you know that the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF, led by the South-South leader, Chief Edwin Clark, has set up a high-level peace and reconciliation committee to mediate on and resolve the lingering crisis between the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and the Governor, Sim Fubara of Rivers State, in a communique issued at the end of its special General Assembly meeting held in Port Harcourt over the weekend. And so we're hoping there's going to be reconciliation and the infighting in Rivers will come to an end. Before we delve into the talking point, is the PDP worried as regards the continuous fight in Rivers State? And do you think this move by PANDEF is going to finally bring peace?
We hope so. It's really worrisome, you know. It's worrisome for the government and people of Rivers State because the problem is not making the governor to stay focused. And you know, when they say when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. The appointment is tenured 4 years. That's a lot the governor wants to achieve. But with this continuous infighting, it's distracting him. And I'm happy that PANDEF has decided as our fathers to step in and broker peace. We as a party, we are doing same at different levels. We have the BOT, we have the Governors Forum, we have the NWC. We are all working together to ensure that peace returns to Rivers State.
All right, we hope that will be achieved. We're still talking with Honorable Mrs. Amina Darasimi Ibrahim, who is the National PDP Women Leader, helping us look at issues as we look at democracy, inclusivity, reserving special seats for women, and we're looking at the benefit and the impact it's going to have. But let's look at what from your perspective as the National President Political Parties Women Leaders Forum, what have you figured out as issues that has made it difficult for women to participate in politics?
There are so many reasons. You have the cultural reasons. You know, what obtains in the South is different from what obtains in the North. Okay. Yes, you have marital issues. I remember one of the ladies talking to us about just these elections that took place, the challenges she faced. She comes from the South, but got married to someone from the Northwest. And then she used to do her elections here in Abuja. And then she wanted to contest for House of Assembly, and somebody said to her, "You're not from here. Can you please go back to where you come from to run the elections?" And so she now goes to her husband's place, and they said to her, "You know you're not from here. Can you please go back, return back to where you come from to run the elections?" So women are being faced with all kinds of...
But shouldn't the political parties at this point step in to protect women?
You know, for us women, we actually have to... you're either contesting from your husband's place or you're contesting from your father's place. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, truly, people begin to remind you where you come from.
Does it matter?
No, but it shouldn't be like that. But that's the way it is now. People begin to remind you, oh, you're not from here. It's as though you're coming to take our position. I've been in a situation where a woman, I'm from Cross River State. She's married from another local government area, has had about 8 children from that local government area, and was running for House of Assembly from where her husband comes from. And suddenly they say to her, you can't come and take our position. Return back to where you're coming from. You know, so we had to fight. And we made the leaders then to see reasons that she has married and has 8 children, for God's sake. How can you still be looking at her as an outsider? But I thank God for those leaders because they made it happen. They said, no, she's from here. She's married to this man. She's got 8 children. You must allow her run this election. So these are part of the things we are struggling with. The women are facing all manner of stereotypes. All manner, you know. And then, of course, education. Women need to be educated. You talk about their health and well-being. You know. You talk about economic empowerment. All of these things put together. If you don't have the resources, how do you run a campaign? How do you run a campaign? And so most times, you see that we run to the men for help, for support. But now what we are trying to do is before 2027, with the empowerment we are looking at, we want to begin to empower women. So that you don't just wake up in 2027 to say, I want to go and run an election. You have to be ready spiritually, mentally, financially, you know. You have to be healthy and ready to run an election. So finances play a major role in our political affairs. It does. Nobody should. I'm not kidding. It's not funny. Because even before you come to run the election, somebody will begin to ask you, what are you bringing to the table? You must have something you're bringing to the table to at least start the election before support can come. So this is part of what we are doing to ensure that women are empowered. And these are the challenges we have noticed across all party levels.
In terms of the thuggery and the violent part of this election process, how ready are Nigerian women, and are they getting the needed support from the political parties, the security agencies? Do you think they're ready to give that extra support to women candidates?
No, as soon as you become the candidate of your party, you become, let's say you become the property of the party. Okay. The party now looks out for you. As soon as you become the candidate. And so everything will be put in place. On the day of the election, you are not alone. As you go to cast your vote, Your party members are all there. You have your agents. Everybody's around there. You're not by yourself anymore. You're representing your political party. So if you're a woman now who has become a candidate of your party, the party takes over everything that's got to do with you, and they ensure that they deliver you at the end of the day.
Okay, let's look at women at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
Yes, those in the urban areas, the big political parties like the Big Five or the Big Three, talking about the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party, NNPP. How are the women looking at to ensure that it's not going to be the same thing we have with the men folks, where you have to either be with the APC or PDP before you have a voice or the chance to vote or be voted for? Do you think the women can break that jinx to make it kind of open?
Well, the truth is, politics is local. Even if you live in Abuja, you must go back home when the time comes to vote, to cast your vote. And so that's why we are beginning to groom women from the grassroots. We have a lot of powerful women in the grassroots. And truly, if you have those women on your side, you are sure of winning these elections. Those who live in Abuja.
Are you sure? Because a lot of people say voters, the vote don't count most times. It seems like the parties and the kingmakers already have who they have anointed, and so that's going to be. How do you intend to change that narrative?
All of this happens before the party primaries.
Okay.
All of this happens before the party primaries. And so as soon as you become the candidate of your party, of course, like I said, everybody comes in to ensure that you win. But you see, what has been happening now, and which is causing voter apathy, is the fact that we do not trust INEC. I'm sorry to say this. Because everything INEC told us they were going to do, they've gone against everything they stood for.
But
the elections
is not part of this.
No, but let me start. Like, for instance, what happened in Edo State? The result from the IREF is different from the result that was announced. And you told us that you were going to, as soon as votes are casted, it will be captured in the IREF. And so how can you have a different result in the IREF and then you come to announce a different result? So there's a lot going on that at the end of the day, people begin to say, look, maybe our votes don't count. And you know, it takes a lot for you to come out on election day, to cast your vote, to sit down there, your votes are counted, and you know what was announced. And by the time the final results are collated, you're hearing something different. So it's beginning to make people doubt the electoral system. So everything INEC stood for, they've gone against it.
Can we say that a lot of political pundits also accuse the People's Democratic Party, PDP, of laying these bad precedents we're seeing, which the APC seem to allegedly continue? Is that true?
You remember that for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we had a sitting president who said, look.
Goodluck Jonathan?
Yes, who said, he gave an example of what democracy should be. And that's why he celebrated the world over today. He looked at the situation and said, listen, no Nigerian has to die for my sake. And then he quickly took his phone and called President Buhari to say congratulations. That is a man who led by example. So, you know, the APC has accused PDP of too many things. But it's like a man who is married to 2 wives. Now they can see the difference between the years PDP were in government and just these few years of APC. Nigerians can tell the difference.
All right, let's get back.
And you know, this was a sitting president that changed the INEC chairman and then allowed him to run his thing. He was neutral. He didn't influence anything. And at the end of the day, he said, and it was even still in PDP, that the late President Yar'Adua came out and said, look, the election that brought me into this position it was rigged. All of this happened in PDP. But what do you see in APC today? The story is different. And it's alarming. And we are getting scared of the things happening around right now. Our democracy is threatened.
All right, let's look at the women folks now. Let's go back in terms of the reservation of seats. With the APC in charge ruling, do you see this playing out? Do you think the APC is completely in support of this reservation of seats for special seats for women ahead of the 2027 elections?
Like I said, the man who is championing this is the deputy speaker. He's a member of the APC. And so we believe that he's a champion of this, and we thank him so much for being at the forefront to do this. A he for she. And we are expecting that. And you know, don't forget that when this conversation started, when he was asking for the numbers and they were saying they need, he just used the gavel and just said, the eyes have it. And so we trust him. We trust him, and we are all solidly behind him. He's an APC member, and we are hoping that we are going to achieve this.
Oh, okay, what's, as we wrap up, what are likely going to be the benefits if Nigerians, alongside the lawmakers, decide to back and support reservation of seats for the Nigerian political women? What are the benefits to accrue to the Nigerian voters, the Nigerians at the rural areas? Because those are the people that matter the most.
What we are asking for is to have a seat at the table where we can talk about the issues that affect women. You know, we cracked some jokes one day when we're having a conference, and somebody said, do you know that in some states, a man is a commissioner for women? And I'm like, what did he just say? So I'm wondering, what is the man going to be saying about the women? You know?
Is he for she?
No, you can't say that. And so what we're agitating for is to have so many women at the sit at the table to talk about what affects us. And you know, if you have more women in the parliament, do you know it will change the country? Things will get better.
How?
The kind of monies you spend.
But these men are married to women.
Yes.
So is it impossible? Because we know they even have more powers in that other room.
See what happens even in the corporate world right now, where you have almost 9 women sitting as the chairman of their banks.
Okay.
This is us Nigerians trusting them and putting our monies in their hands. You understand? So when you have more women sitting at the table, even the economy, have you seen that market woman that you give, even if it's 50,000 to fry akara, she's accountable. So if we have more women sitting and talking about the issues that affect us, this country will be better off for it.
Some have said it looks like it's more about just the women. I'm not hearing you say
People
affecting
living,
the women, affecting the children and the family.
You know, one of the bills that was thrown away actually had to do with the children. One of the bills that was thrown away. But you see, when a woman is empowered, she actually takes care of the home. So when we keep talking about women, we are talking, and when a woman is empowered, she takes care of even her husband. I'm sure you know that. And with the economy now, you cannot afford to depend on your husband alone. With the current situation, it will take the man and the woman to pull resources together to take care of the children. And so we are asking, that's why I keep saying, we're not competing with the men. We just want to complement them. To say, look, if there's no space, just shift for us. Let us just shift. Just give us more space. Let us just sit, you know, so that we can talk about the things that affect us. And truly, if we have more women, and don't forget, it was even in PDP's time that you had more women in the cabinet. Today, you still celebrate Okonjo-Iweala. It was in the PDP era that these women were found. You have Obi, Okwesili. You just name them. You know? Dora Akunyili of blessed memory. They are all there. The PDP had a way of bringing out these women, and you could see their potentials. And that's why we are saying, please, we need more women. Nigeria has a lot of women with capacity. All we just want is give us that opportunity to come out, and we will complement the men. And at the end, this country will be better off for it.
All right, we've been talking with the national women leader of the People's Democratic Party in the person of Honorable Mrs. Amina Darasimi Ibrahim, who has joined us in the studio. She's also the national president of Political Parties Women Leaders Forum, helping us to look at the very interesting talking point, looking at democracy, inclusivity, reserving seats for women. What are the benefits and the impact would be? Obviously, you can tell what the impact will be. And I want to say thank you very much for joining us in the live studio.
Thank you.
All right, that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodu, saying thank you for being part of today's edition. And we hope the advocacy for reservation of seats for Nigerian women in politics would come to pass, and let's see if they've got the magic wand to turn around the fortunes of this great country. Good evening.